Hi, gorgeous ones. Welcome back to my latest effort, an attempt to distract you from the other things that are going on in your life at the moment that may not be that pleasant or comfortable. I am reading to you from my first book, The Men I've Almost Dated, and I am up to the section called Under the Influence of 30, where I talk about how things tend to change for women when we hit that big 3-0. And if you are a woman and you hear me read this excerpt and you go, yeah, I can relate, I'd love for you to comment underneath this video, wherever it's been posted, and share your perspectives about how you felt when you turned 30 and if you made any big decisions at that time, or if things changed for you in some way and you would like to share that. Because at the moment, look, the way things are going, this is the time to share so we can connect with each other more and understand each other more and understand ourselves more and really help each other out with that kind of thing. All right, Under the Influence of 30. It's page 14, by the way, if you've bought the book and you are reading along with me. Leaving Daniel wasn't a decision I made overnight. It actually took years to reach the point of no return with my marriage, but you could say turning 30 was a strong influencing factor. The big 3-0 can have a strong impact on women. For some, it's when we first hear the sustained tick, tick, tick of the biological clock. Often it's also when we fully step into our skins and develop a greater understanding of who we are and what we want from life. We aren't kids in our 20s anymore, and it's time to get real. I started changing as I approached 30, and although everyone loved Daniel, I stopped loving him. Or at least I no longer loved him in the same way. The realization was a massive shock for me. It would be an even bigger shock for my friends and family. Devastated might be a better description for how some of them felt. I can't tell you exactly when I fell out of love. It was more a slow erosion over time, marked by me changing and wanting a different life. Daniel didn't want to change. He was still the man I married, and I guess he thought that should be enough. Maybe it should have been. He was my first serious boyfriend, and in my early 20s, he was exactly what I wanted. But once I started changing, I couldn't change back. I didn't leave Daniel for someone else, but I did think about having an affair, and that's when my life really began to unravel. That I could even consider having sex with another man was inconceivable and shook me to the core. In March 2003, my life was in transition, and I'd left a full-time permanent job to escape a toxic work environment. I was turning into a jaded and bitter version of my former self, and radical action was needed. For a woman who didn't take risks, walking away from job security was a very big deal. By the time I met Simon in July, he was a new colleague in a government department. I was beginning to feel the first stirrings of a real inner self-confidence. My career risks were leading to amazing opportunities, and I felt stronger and more energized. I wasn't being as sensible as I used to be. I'd spent most of my life wanting to be taken seriously and wanted people to know I was smart, reliable, and hardworking. I'd been the queen of structured suits and sensible shoes. No one would have ever described me as frivolous. But my new confidence led to changes in how I thought about myself and how I looked on the outside. Now I wasn't quite so sensible anymore. I started wearing clothes that actually hugged my shape, and instead of hiding it, and my stilettos were geared for serious fun, not serious stuffiness. As an aside, everybody, I am still to this day a stiletto girl. I love them. They make me feel sexy. They make me feel glamorous. And if I'm wearing stilettos and my hair's right, then everything else seems to work. And I think that we all have that thing, right? That we wear or we do with our appearance that helps us to feel more ourselves. And yep, My stilettos definitely helped me to do that. Anyway, I digress. Let's keep going. Then I met Simon. He was married, older, jaded, and the complete opposite of Daniel in every possible way. We were sent on a photo shoot together, and I wasn't sure what to make of him at first. My default behaviour in most situations is to be light and chatty, whereas he was quiet, thoughtful, and introverted. On the way back in the car, we started to really talk and discovered a shared worldview about many topics, including politics and Indigenous affairs, two issues I was very passionate about. It felt like we were in sync. Daniel was never into politics, and his leanings were generally far more conservative than mine. Simon and I talked about things we both cared about. Then it changed from being an interesting and invigorating exchange of ideas to something else entirely. We were standing in the car park around 4 p.m, unpacking the car and talking about marriage and children. I would have liked more kids, he said, but my wife didn't want any more. I'd have children with you in a second, I thought. In that moment, in that car park, my world stopped and the nice, secure life I knew ended. I'd never felt that way with Daniel. We'd started talking about kids, but I'd never felt compelled to do anything more about it. We also had very different perspectives about how they should be raised and what my role would be. Daniel preferred a more traditional setup, while my values demanded something more modern. As a long-time feminist, his expectation I should stay home full-time until the children went to school was offensive, particularly when any interruption to his career was apparently not an option. The car park incident rocked me to the core, and as I drove home that night, my brain whirled this way and that. Why on earth would I think such a thing about a complete stranger? It didn't make sense. I was clearly a terrible and disloyal person. Over the coming months, Simon and I had coffee occasionally, worked together, and although we both considered taking it further, it remained a flirtation. But the feelings and thoughts he triggered in me wouldn't disappear no matter how much I fought them. I hated myself. How could I think of betraying the wonderful man who had been at my side for so long? I didn't understand who I was anymore and began questioning everything in my life. My work, who I was, my relationship with Daniel. Simon had opened a door and all kinds of unstoppable thoughts and feelings began flooding in. The intermittent depression and anxiety of my 20s reared their ugly heads again, and I descended into self-loathing on an epic scale. I wanted to scratch my skin off from the inside. I cried a lot. I would even wake up sobbing in the early hours of the morning. I was constantly distracted and called in sick several times when I just couldn't cope with leaving the house. This went on for months. How could I love one good man but want to rip the clothes off another? Who was this femme fatale I had turned into? I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, if you can't wait for the next step, then you can jump onto Amazon or any of your usual online bookstores and get it in print on demand format or ebook format. This is what the cover looks like. And I hope I've helped to distract you a little bit today during this challenging time. Lots of love to you all, and I will be back again soon. Bye for now.